I wasn't really running away, but I wasn't staying either. After the breakup, after Dad passed, after the job I hated finally let me go, I just kind of floated. One of those strange gray stretches of time where you forget what day it is, forget what you were doing a minute ago, you stop checking your phone, you stop answering it, you become quiet, inside and out. So when a lawyer called and said I'd inherited a house from a relative I'd never met, I almost hung up. But he said my full name. He knew things, old things, things I'd forgotten I told anyone. The man's name was Jonas Hallwig. That didn't mean anything to me. I asked my mom about him later. She just went silent for a moment, then said,
"He kept to himself. Didn't like visitors."
That's all she gave me. The house was in a place called Larkspur Hollow. Never heard of it. Not on any major map. GPS had trouble locking on. But the deed was real, the key was real, and at that point in my life, reality felt like a gift. So I went. The road to the house felt like it was slipping backward. No signs, no neighbors, just trees with gray leaves and that quiet, suffocating kind of wind that makes you check your rearview mirror too often. The house sat at the end of a half-dead field, like something that had grown there rather than been built. 2 sagging stories, wood grayed and warped, windows boarded from the inside, chimney cracked like an old scar. The whole structure leaned slightly, like it was listening. The key the lawyer gave me didn't look like metal. It felt heavier, stone almost, carved. It fit perfectly into the lock. The door opened without effort. No creak, no groan, just a slow, heavy breath of warm, dusty air. Inside it smelled like old paper and forgotten time. Sheets covered the furniture, the wallpaper peeled like it had given up, dust shifted in beams of dying light, but nothing stirred. Still, I felt like I wasn't alone. I chose a bedroom at the far end of the second floor, the only one with a lock on the inside. I told myself it was just a practical choice, but it felt like something deeper, a quiet warning. That night, I lay awake for hours, eyes open in the dark, and somewhere between thoughts, just before sleep, I could have sworn the house exhaled. The first night was quiet. Too quiet. I don't mean peaceful. I mean unnatural. Like the silence had weight. Like it was listening. Old houses creak, right? Wood shifts. Pipes settle. You expect that. But this place didn't creak. It pulsed. There were moments, tiny ones, barely noticeable, when I thought I heard the floorboards shift behind me. But when I turned, nothing. Not even a draft. I walked from room to room with the lights on, just to prove there was no reason to feel what I was feeling. But the lights didn't help. If anything, they made it worse. The shadows seemed thicker around the edges, like the corners didn't like being seen. And then there was the echo. It was subtle at first. I didn't even notice until I said something out loud. Something like, "This place needs air." And somewhere far off, maybe downstairs, I heard it repeat. But not right away. Like a delay. A copy. Out of sync. I stood still for a long time after that, just listening. Eventually, I convinced myself I imagined it. But later that night, around 2:30, maybe closer to 3, I heard it for the first time. A knock. 3 knocks. Slow. Heavy. From inside the wall. I sat up in bed, heart hammering. It wasn't above me or behind me. It was inside, like there was something between the walls. Something with hands. I waited. Nothing. Just silence again. I stayed up until the sun started to rise. It came slow, orange and reluctant. And when I finally stood and looked at the wall, where the knocking came from, the wood looked darker, like it had been warm from the inside. That morning, I didn't eat, didn't shower. I just sat there for hours, staring at that section of wall like it owed me an explanation. It didn't give me one, but I had a thought I couldn't shake. Maybe the house wasn't old. Maybe it was tired of being ignored.
I woke up feeling watched, not by anything visible, but by the house itself, like it had taken a breath the night before and now it was holding it, waiting to see what I'd do next. So I started exploring. There was a hallway closet on the second floor. I hadn't opened it before. Inside was a mess of boxes, stacked carelessly. Most were falling apart, but one of them had documents inside. Legal papers, handwritten notes, receipts, and beneath them all, a floor plan. It was hand-drawn, yellowed from age, smelled like mold and time, but the layout was clear enough, and almost immediately I noticed it. There was a room on the plan that didn't exist in the house. A small, square space at the center of the structure. No windows, just one door connected to the hallway behind the linen closet. That made no sense. I went to the hallway. The linen closet was there, just like in the real house. But behind it, nothing. No door, no hidden hinges, just wall. I knocked. It sounded solid. Too solid. I took a few steps back and looked at the layout again in my mind. Then I measured the hallway. Something was off. It was shorter than it should have been. There were at least 5 feet of missing space. Dead space. Like the house was hiding something and doing a bad job of it. I stared at the wall for a long time. There was no draft, no strange noise, no hint. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was behind it. Something still there, still waiting. I don't know why I didn't try harder to break through it. Maybe part of me didn't want to find the room. Maybe part of me already knew whatever was inside wasn't meant to be disturbed.
That night, sleep didn't come easy. I kept staring at the ceiling, listening to the house breathe around me. At some point, my thoughts drifted to the hidden room, the one that shouldn't exist. And then I dreamt. I found myself inside a small room. No windows, no doors, just white walls stretching endlessly, smooth and cold. The air was thick, almost sticky. There was no clock, no sun, no sense of time at all. Everything was frozen, like the world had stopped. I was alone, but not lonely. It felt quiet, too quiet, like a pause before something. Then I saw it, a shadow. At first, just a shape, blurred and indistinct. But as I blinked, it got clearer. A figure sitting in the corner, watching me. Still, silent, waiting. I wanted to speak, to ask who they were, but no words came out. My mouth wouldn't move. I tried to stand, but my legs felt heavy, like they were stuck in deep mud. I was trapped, and time wasn't just stopped, it was trapped with me. Then, suddenly, the figure moved. Not toward me, not away, just shifted slightly, like it was listening. And then the walls started to close in, slowly, closing, squeezing. I woke up gasping, my heart pounding. The room around me was real. The house was still standing, but something inside me had changed. I lay there for hours, unable to sleep, wondering if the room I saw in the dream was real, if it was inside the walls, or inside my mind. And somewhere deep down, I knew the answer didn't matter, because whether real or not, that room was waiting, and it was patient. After that nightmare, I tried to convince myself it was just a dream, nothing more. But the house had other plans. It started with a smell, not just any smell. Something rotten. Faint at first, like a whisper, but unmistakable. Like something dead, trapped, and slowly decaying. It came from one of the walls in the living room. I noticed it as I walked past, stopped mid-step, turned my head. It made the back of my throat tighten. I approached the wall, slowly, unsure why. The air around it felt different, colder, heavier. I reached out and pressed my palm against the wood. It wasn't cold. It was warm. No, hot, like something alive was just beneath the surface. My skin prickled. I pulled my hand back, but I couldn't look away. That part of the wall, something was wrong with it. There were strange scratches, thin and shallow, like claw marks or fingernails. Hello. I crouched out and noticed an old, rusted nail sticking out near the baseboard. Just one. When I touched it, I swear, I felt something. Like a heartbeat. A pulse. Oh, faint, but steady. Thudding beneath the wood. I froze. Every instinct told me to move away. But something else, something quieter, held me there. I stood slowly, eyes still fixed on the wall. The smell was stronger now. No longer a whisper, it filled the room. Sour, vet, rotten. I turned away and backed into the hallway, trying to make sense of it. Maybe it was a dead animal inside the wall.
Yeah, I think that.
But that night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the wall. I smelled it. I felt it. Breathing. And somewhere deep down, I knew. Whatever was behind that wall, it was real. And it wasn't sleeping.
The next day, I couldn't stop thinking about the strange warmth and the smell. It lingered in my thoughts like a whisper I couldn't unhear. I knew I had to find answers. Real answers. So I started searching the house more carefully. Every drawer, every corner, every crack in the floor. In the attic, buried beneath a loose floorboard covered in dust and cobwebs, I found a small wooden box. It looked fragile, ancient, like it hadn't been touched in decades. I opened it slowly. Inside were old letters, faded photographs, and a single folded note. The paper was brittle, yellowed, stained with age. The handwriting was shaky, like the writer's hand was trembling in fear. I unfolded it carefully. The message was short, just one sentence. Don't open the wall, it's still in there. I read it once, twice, a third time. I stared at the words, trying to breathe. Who wrote this? What were they talking about? Who or what was still in there? There was no signature, no date, just those 6 words. And on the back, a dark stain. It could have been ink, or water, or blood. I couldn't tell, but it made my skin crawl. I tried to dismiss it. Maybe it was a joke, a relic from someone's imagination, left behind and forgotten. But deep down, I knew it wasn't that. This wasn't a prank. It was a warning, a real one, a desperate one. I folded the note and slipped it into my pocket. And as I did, a terrible thought crept in. What if this house wasn't just a home? What if it was a cage, a prison, and something behind the walls had never left? That night, the knocking started again. 3 slow knocks, like a heartbeat, coming from inside the wall. I lay in bed, eyes wide open, clutching the note in my hand, its paper now damp with sweat. I wondered, what if it's not just a warning? What if it's a plea, a cry for help, or worse, a threat? And that's when it hit me. This house didn't want me to leave. Because whatever was inside, it wasn't finished with me yet. The knocking started the very next night, at exactly 3:17 a.m. Not once, not twice, but 3 sharp knocks, slow and deliberate. I was lying in bed, eyes wide open, heart pounding like a drum in my chest. At first, I thought it had to be my imagination. Maybe just the old house settling, creaks, pipes, anything. But then, it happened again. Same time, 3:17, on the dot. And the next night, and the next. Always the same. 3 knocks. Every night. A pattern. A signal. Or a warning. I tried to ignore it. Told myself it was just the wind or rats in the walls. But no matter how many excuses I made, every time I heard those knocks, a chill would crawl down my spine. Not just fear. Recognition. Like the sound was meant for me. Like it knew I was listening. One night, I got up, moved toward the source. I placed my ear gently against the wall. The wood was cold, but beneath the surface, I felt it. A faint vibration, almost like breathing. The knocks weren't random. They had rhythm. 3 knocks. Pause. 2 knocks. Pause. 1. I started counting, writing it down. Was it a pattern? A code? A name? A warning? I didn't know. But the silence that followed, that silence was worse than the sound. It felt like something was waiting, listening, holding its breath. And then, the lights flickered. The air shifted. A sudden drop in temperature, like the warmth had been sucked out of the room. And in that moment, I knew I wasn't alone. The wall wasn't just wood and nails. It was alive. And it was trying to speak. After nights of restless sleep and that relentless knocking, I made a decision. I had to leave. Just get out. Get away from this house, clear my head, breathe. I packed a small bag, grabbed my keys, and stepped outside. The air was thick, heavier than before. A dense, unnatural fog had swallowed the street. Like the world outside the house had started to dissolve. I walked to my car, my chest tight with cautious hope. Maybe this was it. Maybe I could still get out. I opened the door, slid behind the wheel, put the key in the ignition, turned it. Nothing. Just silence. I tried again, and again. No sound, not even a click. The engine was dead, lifeless, as if something had drained it dry. I slammed my fists against the steering wheel, shouting in frustration. My breath fogged the windshield. I looked up, down the street, desperate for any sign of help. And then, through the wall of mist, I saw headlights. A bus, coming this way. Its beams cut through the fog like twin blades. I jumped out of the car, waving my arms, screaming for it to stop, to see me, but the bus didn't slow. It didn't even hesitate. It passed by without a sound, as if I wasn't there, as if I didn't exist. My hands dropped to my sides. My voice died in my throat. I felt invisible, erased. I pull out my phone. No signal, no bars, no messages, no time, just nothing. The street was empty again, silent. I turned slowly and looked back at the house. It stood there in the mist. Dark windows, stillness, watching, waiting. I wanted to believe I could just walk away. But in that moment, I knew something wouldn't let me. Something that lived inside that house, something ancient and patient. I sank to the ground, heart racing, breath shallow. And then, from somewhere deep inside the walls, I heard it again. 3 knocks, exactly 3:17 a.m. No escape. Not yet.
That night, I was too exhausted to think, too drained to feel fear. I just wanted sleep, silence, peace. But the house had other plans. I heard footsteps on the stairs. Slow, heavy, deliberate. I froze. Every creak of the staircase felt like a heartbeat. Not mine, but something else's. Something wrong. I stayed perfectly still, ears straining, breath held. And then I saw it. At the top of the stairs, a figure, standing completely still, silent. Its shape was human, but something was off. Its eyes, wide, round, and pure white, No pupils, no emotion. Just emptiness. It didn't blink, didn't move. It just stared. I blinked, and it was still there. I wanted to scream, to ask who it was, but no sound came. My throat was locked, my body frozen. A wave of cold washed over me, like stepping into ice water. My fingers fumbled for the light switch. I flipped it. And just like that, the figure anticipated. Like smoke dissolving into air. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear myself think. Was it real? A hallucination? A trick of the dark? But the feeling of being watched, it lingered. Thick. Heavy. The silence that followed was unnatural, like the house had swallowed the sound. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I just lay there, eyes open, staring at the ceiling, waiting. And as the first gray light of dawn crept through the window, I knew the house wasn't empty. It never had been. Something lived here. Something, or someone, had always been watching, waiting. And now, it knew I was afraid. I couldn't ignore it any longer. The wall had secrets, and I had to find out what. Armed with a hammer and a crowbar, I approached the spot where the strange warmth and smell came from. My hands trembled as I struck the plaster. The sharp, hollow sound echoed through the house. Piece by piece, the wall began to give way. Then, a small opening appeared. I peered inside. Darkness. But as my eyes adjusted, I saw it, a narrow passage leading into the unknown. Taking a deep breath, I stepped inside. The air was thick and stale, like the breath of a long-forgotten tomb. The passage ended at a door, old, wooden, barely hanging on rusty hinges. I pushed it open. Inside was a room that shouldn't exist. White walls, no windows, perfectly clean. In the center, a worn armchair faced the corner. On the floor lay a pile of ashes, and next to it, an old broken toy, a faded teddy bear missing one eye. The silence was deafening. It felt like the room was waiting for me. I couldn't tell if it was a prison or a trap, but one thing was clear. This room held the key to everything, and it was far from empty. Stepping fully inside the hidden room, I felt an eerie stillness wrap around me like a cold fog. The air was thick, heavy with silence, so dense it pressed against my lungs. The walls were unnervingly white, spotless as if freshly painted. No windows, no vents, no sign of where the stale air could have come from. It was a space frozen in time, isolated from the rest of the house. In the center stood the armchair. It was old, worn, but strangely inviting, like it had been waiting for someone to sit in it again. The fabric was threadbare, the stuffing peeking through in places. On the floor nearby lay a pile of ashes, dark and cold to the touch. I couldn't tell what had burned here, but the smell of smoke still lingered faintly. Next to the ashes was a broken toy, a small teddy bear, missing one eye. Its fur was matted and dirty, but the expression on its face was almost sad. I picked it up carefully. Something about the toy sent a chill down my spine. It felt familiar. I looked around the room, desperate for any other clues. The floorboards creaked softly under my feet, breaking the silence in tiny, unsettling bursts. Then I noticed scratches on the walls. Thin, uneven lines, like someone had tried to claw their way out. They were smeared with a dark substance, old, dried blood. I swallowed hard. Was someone trapped here? Or something? I sat in the chair, trying to steady my breathing. Suddenly, a faint sound caught my attention. A soft humming, almost like a lullaby. I looked around, but no one was there. The sound seemed to come from an old tape recorder on a small table in the corner. I approached it and found a cassette inside. I pressed play. A faint voice began to sing a child's lullaby. But the song was cut short, the singer stopping abruptly at the word stop. The room grew colder. My heart hammered in my chest. This wasn't just a room. It was a memory, a prison, a warning. And I wasn't sure if I was meant to be here, or if I had already crossed a line from which there was no return. The tape recorder sat on the dusty table like a forgotten relic, its buttons worn and faded. I hesitated, fingers trembling as I pressed play. At first, there was only static. A low, crackling hum filled the silence. Then, a faint voice emerged, a soft, shaky voice singing a lullaby. The melody was sweet but twisted like a shadow lurking beneath a child's song. The voice sang slowly, each word deliberate, almost pleading. But then, halfway through, the singing stopped abruptly. A harsh whisper cut through the silence. "Stop!" The word echoed in the room, bouncing off the bare walls. I held my breath. The tape recorder clicked and hissed as if it was damaged or refusing to continue. I pressed rewind and played it again. The voice was the same, sweet and haunting. Then the whispered stop at the end, like a warning. I wondered, who was singing? Was it a child? Or someone trapped, trying to reach out from the past? The room felt colder. My skin prickled. I looked around, half expecting to see someone standing in the corner, but there was only silence. Still, the feeling lingered, like the voice was watching me, listening, waiting. I realized then that this recording wasn't just a relic. It was a message, a cry for help. And whatever was behind that wall, it knew I was here. That night, I couldn't sleep. The lullaby haunted my dreams. The whispered, "Stop," repeating over and over, like a ghostly warning I couldn't escape. Something in the house was changing. Or maybe I was changing. I woke up in my bedroom, but something felt off. The morning light was wrong, too dim, too cold. I looked at the clock. It read 3:17 a.m. Again. I thought it was a nightmare. But when I got up and walked through the house, I realized I wasn't anywhere new. I was back inside the hidden room. The same white walls, the same armchair, the same broken teddy bear. I tried to open the door to leave, but it wouldn't budge. Panic rose in my chest. I pounded on the door, shouted for help, but the house was silent. I sat in the chair, trying to calm my racing heart. And then I noticed everything was repeating, like a broken record stuck on the same part of a song. I opened the door again. This time, I stepped out, but the hallway looked different. Longer, darker. The walls seemed to breathe, pulsing slowly, like a living thing. I wandered the house, but every door, every window led me back here, back to the same spot. Time had lost all meaning. Days, hours, they blurred into one endless moment. I couldn't tell if I was trapped in the house or trapped in my own mind. The knocking at 3:17 continued. A relentless reminder that I was caught in this loop. The house wasn't just a building anymore. It was a trap, and I was its prisoner. I screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the walls. I was alone, or so I thought. Because sometimes, in the corner of my eye, I saw movement. Shadows flickering just out of sight, watching me. Waiting. I don't know how long I've trapped here. Time lost all meaning, slipping through my fingers like water. Outside the window, a thick white fog rolled in. It swallowed everything, trees, streets, even the sky. The world beyond the house disappeared. Inside, the air grew colder, heavier. I tried to call for help, but my phone was useless. No signal, no calls,
No messages. Except one. A single text appeared on the screen. It read, "You let it out." I stared at the message, heart pounding. Who sent it? Or was it a warning? I tried to reply, but the keyboard didn't work. The fog outside thickened, pressing against the glass like a living thing. I felt trapped between two worlds, inside the house and lost in that endless white void. The silence was deafening. And then I heard it again, the knocking. 3 knocks, 3:17 a.m. The fog seemed to seep inside the house, curling around my feet. I wanted to run, to escape, but the walls closed in. I was caught. The message kept flashing on my phone. You let it out. I didn't know what I'd let out, or what was coming for me next. But one thing was clear. I wasn't safe. Not anymore.
I don't know how long I've been writing this. Minutes? Hours? Days? Time doesn't exist here anymore. The house watches me. It knows I'm afraid. It knows I'm weak. It waits patiently as I write these words that may be my last. I can feel eyes on my back, even when I'm alone. The shadows shift, twisting just beyond my vision, but every time I turn, there's nothing there. Or maybe there is. Maybe it's hiding, waiting for the moment I let my guard down. The knocking hasn't stopped. 3 knocks. Every night at 3:17 a.m., a reminder that I'm not alone. That I never was. My phone buzzed one last time. No message, just silence. But the screen flickered and I swear I saw a face, pale, hollow-eyed, staring back at me. I tried to scream, but the sound got caught in my throat. The room started to close in, walls breathing, pulsing like a heartbeat. I want to leave, to run, to escape this nightmare, but the house won't let me. It has me now. I'm trapped inside its endless loop, a prisoner of my own curiosity and fear. If you're hearing this, if you found these words, beware. Don't make the same mistake. Don't open the walls. Don't listen to the whispers. Because once it's watching you, there's no turning back. It's watching me write this. It knows you're listening.